Welcome to Happy Times and Places, a Doctor Who commentary with a difference. It has to be positive, and I, Toby Hadoke, have to see if I can guess what my guests' favourite things about their chosen story are.
Hello Toby, my name's Alex Moore and I work in locations for both TV and film. You can find me on Twitter at AlexMoore99. The story that I have chosen is The Time Monster.
And we both said a prayer for a big marine named Camouflage. Hello, it's episode 3 of The Time Monster, and it's the daytime, and I don't care. If you're watching along, and you don't have to, there is no obligation so to do, press play, or in my case, because I'm on episode selection for the first time ever in Happy Times and Places, wow, we're rewriting the rulebook as we go along, press enter or play or whatever now. Oh, it did it first time. There we go. Welcome. I didn't sleep last night. The first 2 episodes, if you're watching this in order, which I hope you are, this timey-wimey nonsense, I watched 2 episodes last night, but I had a terrible sleep, and I've got up, and I've done a bit of work, and I'm still in my pyjamas, and I've just got that nagging, middle-aged ennui, and I thought, I'm going to watch that. If there's nothing that can sum up our situation more, so I'm lucky I've got a partner, I have friends I can talk to. If I don't want to talk to anybody. I quite like talking out loud and expressing my feelings. I don't want to burden anybody else with those. But Doctor Who, there's nothing. Trying to watch The Time Monster to get something good out of it is surely as close as a metaphor for life as we need. Because I know I feel better if I eat better, if I do exercise. But I think I've always thought, I'm writing a script at the moment. Oh, I thought when I was younger, if I get to do things like write scripts for telly, that'll make life better. None of those things make life better. Life is a constant. You have to keep exercising, whatever it is that you put into place to negotiate the mire. And mine's not talking to people. Mine's not, I can't drink anymore. I can't smoke anymore. Which are things I used to do to sort of stick 2 fingers up to the world or to distract me from what was going on. But Doctor Who has always been here. Anyway, welcome. For the commentary for this, it was me and 4 writers who, because we had no money, and I suggested, get some Doctor Who fans who are professionals on the commentary. So this hasn't actually got on the DVD a commentary from any of the production personnel. I think it's an ambition of mine to maybe redress that when we come to do it on Blu-ray, when they come to do it on Blu-ray, and I hope that and I wait for the phone call to see if somebody will ask me to be involved. It's never guaranteed, but I think we could do with doing because we were scuppered by budget, and this is a season finale. Let's forget this was. Like The Demons is the sort of climax of the previous year. This is the season finale. The big bad returns. The Master returns. Well, he's only had 6 weeks off, but there's a Time Eater, Atlantis. This is war, and then it's a story that nobody really talks about. So we got a load of writers, and I knew Graham Duff, who wrote a series called Ideal that was done up here. I wasn't in it, but I know a load of people that were, and Graham used to come to a sketch show that I was involved in. And Graham has since, nobody's ever noticed this, Graham wrote a sitcom called Ideal, but is also a Doctor Who fan. He's in Peter Capaldi's first episode as a sort of robotic waiter. So he started his Who association on the DVD commentary for the Time Monster. He's the only actor, surely, to be on a DVD commentary before he performs in an episode of Doctor Who, a completely unrelated episode, many years later. We've got Phil Ford and Joe Lidster, and it's not a bad lineup of people I just Facebooked. went, "We haven't got any money. Would you like to come and do a DVD commentary? You get a free DVD." So that's how we sort of the budgets of these things got. So anybody that doesn't like the fact that we haven't got production personnel on that commentary, if it's literally better than nothing, then you're lucky, because that was the choice. We work very hard on the DVDs, but yeah, sometimes what you get is literally better than nothing, because nothing is the alternative. Anyway, I've gone off on one, haven't I? It's not always going to be exact. So Ian Collier, Stuart Hyde has just become a young man again. I love this effect. Yeah, I love the sort of flapping budgerigar thing is often had the Mickey taken out of it, but for something where Doctor Who's monsters are often and it eats Percival, doesn't it? I think that's good, and it's very cleverly shot, because you get snatches of it, the whiteness, the fact that it's sometimes out of focus. I think Kronos is great. I love it in a series where monsters are often men in green suits or lumber about. Having something that's sort of bright white, sometimes indistinct, but that squawks and flaps rather than lumbers or hisses. But I know that people are hard on Kronos. I'm liking Kronos, and I love this sort of out of focus thing going on. And isn't sometimes the simplest effect great? They've slowed down time. Well, it's on film, you can slow down film. Slightly scuffed by the fact... Oh, and yeah, poor old Wondermore's having to sort of jog on the spot there. And he's pulled her out of the slow-mo. That was good, that was effective. That's quite a daring shirt she's got on, isn't it? It's sort of... It's like a burgundy explosion, or even a sort of burgundy petri dish, burgundy mould. I know the fact that it's it's a sort of giant time budgerigar flapping about behind a Venetian blind is very Doctor Who, especially when you've got Roger Delgado, who is incapable of doing anything other than elevating what is around him by the fact that he is sheer class. But yeah, the slow-mo thing, it's so simple and effective. And I like this location. It's slightly undermined by the fact that Bessie has done with speeded up, because that wasn't time speeding up, that was just an effect to make the car look like it was going quicker. Yeah, and this little motif of Kronos regressing back into the crystal, flapping its wings, is great. So I'd forgotten Paul Bernard directed the series opener and the series finale, and Robert Sloman, the writer. Sloman and Bernard are Pertwee-only figures, who both did interviews, but not as many as you'd have liked them to. And Sloman had died by the time we did the DVD of this, but he is on the DVD in a small interview on the Green Death. I'd like to have heard more of him, because he was not as experienced a writer, wasn't he? Was he? And Barry Letts sort of brought him in, and they worked on stuff together. I'd like to know his story a bit better. He worked in distribution in Fleet Street, didn't he? Donald Eccles is giving it quite a lot here. I think perhaps he's giving it more than is strictly necessary. But sometimes that's what you need when you've got two actors talking nonsense in a sort of in a lab set, and one of them's in a wig and Atlantean garb. He's got to give it a bit of something. Oh, talking of actors giving it too much. It's an extraordinary quality that Aidan Murphy, who I believe those so inclined think of as rather beautiful. He is rather beautiful. He's obviously I'm not designed to have my boat floated by whatever buoyancy he provides, but he's got he's got a pretty face. He's still around, but his career, this perhaps won't be a surprise to anybody watching, never quite took off. Very good sets. This is all on film, of course. So Atlantis looks amazing at the moment because Atlantis is only on film, and it's got King Dalios, George Cormack, who returns in Planet of the Spiders as Campo, another Pertwee-only figure. He's got a lovely quality about him, and he looks good. I'm assuming that's a wig. He's got very good flowing white hair, but you have to be very careful in sort of robes and oldie worldy, don't you? Because there's a temptation for everyone to sort of perform like they're in a 1950s performance of Shakespeare at one of the lesser reps. And what is it, that light? Oh, Aidan Murphy, great. Now, I am normally going to champion performers, and I think I see beauty and poetry in performances that many viewers today might see as being a bit stilted or stagey. That's because acting has become quite boring nowadays in places and rather muttered. I quite like a performance that has a bit of something about it, which is why I keep going back to telly in the 60s, 70s and 80s. But it's not always, and sometimes you get a performance like Aidan Murphy as Hippias, who manages to be both wooden and over the top at the same time, which is quite a skill. Sort of rather insipid and yet too much, both at the same time. It's sort of... yeah, it's that takes some doing. But again, we could have tried to get him for the commentary as well. We just struggled, I think. We didn't have any money. There's a commentary to be done on this. Does anybody know Aidan Murphy and Wonder Moore? Perhaps they probably live together, knowing. Well, they probably live next door. The amount of times I've looked for somebody and then found out just after they've died that they were uncle of a friend of mine or something. So if you live in a commune with Aidan Murphy and Wanda Moore, come around for tea. We'll do a commentary on the Time Monster. I like Pertwee's jacket here, and he hasn't got any neck garments. I like a neck garment, but I quite like the sort of casual. I saw somebody on Twitter today put rehearsal pictures of the Monster of Peladon, and he didn't have his bow tie on, and it was sort of big collars, open necked. It was the same costume, just without the bow tie, and it looked rather cooler. Because he's quite cool, Pertwee, isn't he? He's a very natural presence as the Doctor, isn't he? Now, I seem to recall, are they eating marmalade sandwiches? I remember thinking that was very funny in the book as well, that Stuart Hyde only had marmalade for sandwiches. But again, I know that some people hate Stuart Hyde. I think I probably should, but I don't know. I just liked him in the book. He's quite an unusual character. Anyway. Yeah, Donald Eccles is really going for it, isn't he? Oh. He's just so good, Delgado. Now I think this annoys people as well, doesn't it? The building of a time thing with a wine bottle in a... I think it's suitably silly that it's allowed. Interesting. I'd probably be furious if it was in the series now, but because it's in the past and you can't do anything about the past, or can you? And Doctor Who's future isn't resting on it. When Doctor Who is sort of a bit outrageous, embraces its stupidity. We go, yeah, that's fine. It's Doctor Who's, but as a sort of young, serious fan, had this been on when I was a young, serious fan, as opposed to several years before, because I'm very young, I can understand why I might have been furious, because Doctor Who's very serious, and you can't jam a time signal with a wine bottle and some forks. And yet, fruitcake standard. There we go. I used to love that line. Nutty is a fruitcake. And yes, it's just getting to the the Brigadier, of course, has that wonderful wonderful shtick of being disbelieving of everything, which does get to the point where you go, when are you going to start? But I mean, I'm all for a skeptic, especially in this world of conspiracy theories. But then again, conspiracy theories are based on being skeptical of some things that you just go, no, just you have to just accept some things. Anyway, let's not get into. There's a man at the co-op who thinks that all terrorist attacks have been faked and they use mannequins. He said the Westminster Bridge attack was faked because he saw a picture. Have you seen the dead bodies? No, I haven't seen the dead bodies. I'm not looking at pictures of dead people. Well, you could tell they were mannequins. What? No, surely it's easy. It's easier to actually kill people than invent some fictional people, create a backstory for them, hire actors to play their sad relatives, and also get everybody to look the other way whilst you ship in these mannequins for which presumably there's no sales records. If you're that evil, they're just going to kill people. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah. But that said, I'm less inclined to believe that. I'm more inclined to believe that the Westminster terrorist attacks were real than that you can block a time experiment with a wine bottle, some key fobs, 2 sets of keys, a tin mug. Hang on, I've not long done Turn Left on this. That had a tin mug in it as well. I wonder if I'm going to see how many tin mugs there are in the history of Doctor Who. Oh, there we go. It was fun while it lasted. It was very silly. Oh yes, of course. This is the episode with all the. There's something about the TARDIS on a van or on a lorry that I rather like. And also, I've just done Evil of the Daleks, and the TARDIS is on a van in that. It's interesting how when you watch stories in random order, strange similarities crop up that you'd never noticed before. But I do like the TARDIS on a van. I like it on in Marco Polo as well when it's on a cart, isn't it? There's something about seeing the TARDIS transported not under its own steam that makes it seem sort of, it gives it a sort of grubby nobility. I don't know why. And of course, this is where yes. It really is crass. I'd not noticed quite how bad Donald Eccles was. A marvellous actor. He's really good in the John Mills Quatermass. He has another great line about that he's an old chemist, so they get him to sniff stuff. I'll tell you in a minute, because this caused all sorts of problems. He's a Greg Powell is now a hugely highly regarded stuntman. He worked on the Harry Potters and all sorts of things, but I think he was relatively inexperienced here, and there was certainly anger between the production team and the stunt, and there was injury and all sorts. But that's a great image, isn't it? I think did Barry talk about it on the commentary? He must have talked about it on one of the later episodes. A goon in fancy dress. No, it's an actual night, and I like Doctor Who when it. Have you been drinking? Come on, Brigadier. If it sounds strange, it's more likely to be true rather than somebody being drunk or imagining it. You have been drinking. Oh dear. Now Simon Legree, Unit Sergeant. I've never come across him in anything before or since. I hope he's well and happy. This is going to be. Oh dear. Oh yes. And now it's the Roundheads. I love the incongruity of old-fashioned stuff against Roger. But you could be shooting your granddad. Don't kill any of the Roundheads. That would be awful, wouldn't it? Unit soldier fired on a Roundhead. We're going to be interrupted for the first time in one of these because my other staff has just come downstairs in the lift because I didn't tell her I was doing this because I've done it on an impulse because I'm 46 and sometimes you have to do impulsive things. You're right. You're right. Can I carry on?
Oh, sorry, you told me to... Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm doing a thing. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'll mind out the way.
No, well, you don't have to worry.
No, I'm going back upstairs anyway.
It's live. Look, it's live. It's real life.
It's live. Shit. It's 1972.
It is 1972.
I'm psychic Doctor Who years.
Yeah, there is. I like having the modern day invaded by the past. I think there's the juxtaposition. I think that knight against the lorries, the Roundheads against the unit soldiers. That's a nice wheeze. That's a very sort of Doctor Who-y, dare I say, timey-wimey thing. But yes, I do worry about. I worry unnecessarily. I'm very drawn to that bit in Clark's when they talk about the Death Star being built and gets in Return of the Jedi, and you know it gets blown up and you go, but the guys building it, they're just manual labourers. You know, they're probably being forced to work under union rules. You know, blah blah blah. So and yet, you know. So they die in the explosions as well, you know. And you sort of think about these Roundheads; they're not baddies. They're just transported through time. So they're suddenly having to fight against people with machine guns, and you go, that's slightly unfair, and they're not. So yeah, I hope they don't kill any of the Roundheads. One of them is Dave Carter, he's the speaking Roundhead, isn't he? Who's a ubiquitous small part player in 70s Doctor Who. Now, phew, they vanished before Captain Yates could blow them all to pieces. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they're gonna... Yes. And, yeah, that idea of snatching things from different time periods is a great sort of kids Saturday tea time sort of thing to do, I think. Now people say this is in black and white, so it's you know it's sort of often listed as a mistake. The picture of the footage of the V2 is in black and white, but the picture is so murky. I'm not sure you can attest to that with any massive confidence. It could just be a grey day. Yeah. So anyway, well, V1. Sorry. Of course, it creates a time paradox because if the Master, as we discover in the next episode, has snatched that from back in time when it did actually land here, then it never would have landed here. See, that's a great shot of the TARDIS and the convoy. I think is really good. It's not usual for so many actors. I mentioned Simon Legree, Dave Carter for Ubiquitous one. We've struggled to get hold of, and Aidan Murphy. I know somebody's had a signed photo from Aidan Murphy. Ditto Wonder Moore, but no great contact. It's not usual for a Doctor Who story to have living actors that we don't either know where they are or we've not had some sort of contact with. There's a sort of cabal of us who sort of at various times made overtures to supporting actors, guest actors. But the Time Monster is one that's quite unlucky. So maybe everyone's just a bit embarrassed. But they shouldn't be, because I love that explosion. And I love the fact that the Brigadier is Captain Yates, Sergeant Major Captain Yates. When he thinks that Captain Yates has been blown up, he says, Mike. I love that. That makes I actually get a little bit emotional when he does that. Because it's, it's a sign that they're mates. And Mike is because he's even credited as Captain Mike Yates. But I love the fact that the Brigadier's clearly worried, so he calls him Mike. So that's the end of The Time Monster Part 3. I was in a foul mood when I started doing this. I was having a rotten day. Well, not a rotten day even, just a day of kind of... I think meh is the current parlance. It's happening to me a lot because I'm 46. And I know I have so many things that other people don't have in terms of luck and good fortune and partnership and support and all those sorts of things. But I think I am going through a midlife crisis. And this is my way of battling it. So if anybody's out there, thanks for giving me at least the idea that somebody might be listening. If you're going through a midlife crisis, it's definitely a thing, isn't it? It's definitely a thing. And I'm aware it's not the worst thing, but, you know, I know, but I also, sometimes I get hungry. And I'm not as hungry as somebody starving in Africa. That, of course not. Everything is relative. But somebody being starving in Africa doesn't stop me being hungry, even if I'm luckier than they are. Do you know what I mean? So, interesting. But it's always Doctor Who that you go back to see what makes you happy about it. My favourite thing about that episode, it's got to be the way that the Brigadier says Mike at the end. There's some good things in there. I like all the sort of, I like the slow motion stuff. I love Kronos. But I might be saving Kronos for a later instalment, unless Alex does Kronos, because that means I can't. I love the juxtaposition of the medieval knight and the unit Land Rovers, but I love the way that the Brigadier says Mike. And I've got something that's just hit me. I'm not sure he does in there. I think the cliffhanger cuts off early in the next episode. I might have dreamt that. Let's see what Alex has chosen.
My best thing about episode 3 is the time flow analog machine. Who knew that you could interfere with the inner workings of a TARDIS with the help of a corkscrew, a couple of forks and an old mug? I think it's wonderfully 70s Who and sort of sums up the inventiveness of John Pertwee's Doctor.
Well, and he's young, but obviously not too serious, which means he's going to be all right. Good lad, good old Alex. Alex liked the stupid wine bottle time manipulator. Well, look, we're halfway through. We're in the midpoint of the Time Monster, but it's not. How is it going to resolve its midpoint crisis? I expect next week the Time Monster to buy itself a Harley Davidson, or at least go take a trip to Atlantis. We'll see. I'm still in my pajamas, and it's 6 minutes past 4. Oh, to humanity. Thanks. See ya. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest this time around is Alex Moore. He is on Twitter at Alex Moore, with an E on the end, 99. This episode's featured patrons, to whom thanks are due, are Ruben Herfindahl, Rob Leonard, Jenny at Bluebox99, Paul Cook, John Deere, Chris Dunford-Kelk, Siobhan Galichon, Ian Key, Joe Llewellyn, Darren Mackay, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Andrew, Luke Atkins, Peter Adamson, Will Brooks and Rick Byatt. The music for this podcast is specially composed by Dave Gates, and the podcast artwork is by Dylan Patterson. You can support these broadcasts by subscribing at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. There's extra goodies there and early releases too. If you prefer or are only able to do a one-off payment, that is equally happily received at ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke. Your support is appreciated, but I know times are tough, but it'll cost you nothing to go to your favourite outlets and review and rate these as highly as you can. It really does help. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where there is a video version of this podcast available. Find out more at my website, www.tobyhadoke.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Toby Hadoke, or these podcasts at Hadoke Podcasts.